You're standing in the pro shop. A fresh set of irons is sitting on the rack, shining under the lights. The tag says $1,300, and a young guy in a branded polo is telling you these will finally give you back the distance you've lost. Here's the truth. The best iron for your game might already be sitting in your trunk, and the one that costs the most is almost never the one that helps you the most. I've tested these clubs myself on a launch monitor with my own money, and nobody paid me to say a single word of this. So I can tell you exactly which irons are worth it for every kind of player and which ones are selling you a number that isn't real. 2 summers ago, I stood on a launch monitor at my home range and hit my brand new 7-iron right next to the 8-year-old one I'd left in my trunk. Same swing, same ball, and the carry number on that screen barely moved. I paid a lot of money to feel that. Stick with me, because by the end, I'll show you a $50 change to irons you already own that gave me back nearly 8 yards of carry. No new set required. This works whether you're buying tomorrow or keeping the clubs in your bag right now. Let me start with the question. Everybody asks me at the range, what are the best irons in golf right now? And the honest answer is that it depends entirely on who's swinging them, because the iron that's perfect for a low handicap ball striker will actively hurt a 70-year-old with a smooth, slower tempo. So let's do this by player type, the way it should be done. And I want you to notice something as we go, because a pattern's going to show up in the numbers that the ads will never tell you. Start with the player who needs the most help, the higher handicap golfer, the senior who's lost swing speed and just wants the ball in the air and moving forward. For that player, I keep coming back to a small group of clubs, the Ping G 430, the Cleveland Launcher XL Halo, the Callaway Rogue Saint Max OS, and Cobra's oversized game improvement irons. These are what the industry calls game improvement and super game improvement irons. Wide soles, deep cavities behind the face, weight pushed low and to the edges. And here's what that actually does. Measured, not promised. When I tested the Ping G 430 against a player's iron with the same loft, my mishits, the ones struck low on the face, held their ball speed within about 2 miles an hour of my center strikes. With the thin blade, that same low strike dropped 4 to 5 miles an hour and fell out of the sky, good 12 to 15 yards short. That's the whole game right there. Forgiveness isn't about your good shots. It's about how badly your bad shots get punished. And for the average player over 50, protecting the miss is worth more than any headline distance claim. The Cleveland Launcher XL Halo deserves a special mention for one reason. It's built with a hollow, long iron design that gets the 4, 5, and 6 iron up in the air for people who haven't been able to hit a long iron cleanly in years. When I put it on the monitor, the 5-iron launched almost 3 degrees higher than my old cavity back 5-iron, and it landed soft instead of running through the green. For a slower swing, that steeper landing angle is the difference between holding a green and watching your ball bounce into the back bunker. So if you're that player, the verdict is simple. Buy forgiveness, buy launch, skip anything marketed to a tour pro. But here's where it gets interesting, because when I lined all these game improvement irons up and measured them against each other, the distance difference between the best one and the worst one was almost nothing. And that told me something was going on that nobody in the shop wanted to explain. So let me explain it, because this is the part that made me angry once I understood it. Pull out a 7-iron from 1995, measure the loft on the face. You'll find something close to 34 or 35 degrees. Now pull a brand new game improvement 7-iron off today's rack and measure it. You'll find 27 degrees. Some are down to 25. Think about what that means. The 7-iron they're selling you today has the loft of what used to be a 5-iron. Of course, it goes farther. It goes farther because it's a stronger club wearing a 7 printed on the sole. They didn't hand you distance. They handed you a different number stamped on the bottom of the club. This is called loft jacking, and the industry's been doing it quietly for 30 years. Every few seasons, the lofts creep a degree or 2 stronger. So when you go test this year's model against your old set, the new 7 flies farther, you feel the magic, and you reach for your wallet. But you didn't gain anything a real club fitter couldn't have told you. You just bought a 5-iron with a 7 on it. I want you to sit with the cost of that. Golfers have been trading in perfectly good irons and paying $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 for a set, believing new technology gave them 15 yards, when all it really gave them was a lower number engraved on the head. The engineers profited from a very simple human assumption that the number on the club means the same thing it meant 20 years ago. It doesn't. And here's the part that should really bother you. That stronger loft comes with a hidden bill. When you strengthen a 7-iron to 27 degrees, you cannot launch it as high or land it as soft, not without help from a lot of club head, weight low and back. So they add that weight. The club gets bigger and more forgiving, and the marketing calls that innovation too. They created a problem with the loft and then sold you the solution to fix it. That's the machine you've been buying into. But loft jacking creates a second problem that's even worse, and almost nobody talks about it. Let's get to that, because it's costing you shots on the scorecard right now. When your 7-iron is really a 5-iron in disguise, your whole set gets squeezed together at the bottom. Here's what I mean. Your pitching wedge on a modern game improvement set might be 43 or 44 degrees. The old standard was 48. So now there's a giant gap between your pitching wedge and your sand wedge, sometimes 50 or 60 yards of nothing. I measured this in my own bag once and nearly fell over. I had a full carry number with my pitching wedge, and then my next club down carried more than 50 yards shorter. 50 yards. That's an entire scoring zone with no club to cover it. Those are the exact distances that decide whether you make par or scramble for double bogey, and the stronger lofts had quietly stolen that whole range from me. So the strong lofted set that felt so long on the range was actually leaving me helpless around the green. That's the trade nobody puts on the box. And if you want the deeper breakdown on all of this, I've put it together in one place. Everything I've learned, testing irons on a launch monitor, the loft tables, the shaft weight findings, the fitting specs that actually move the needle, it's all inside my book, Swing Strong. There's also a companion volume called Full Swing that goes deeper into the mechanics behind club selection and swing efficiency for players at every level. You'll find the links in the description below, and I genuinely recommend starting there before you walk into any pro shop or fitting bay, because knowing this going in changes every conversation you'll have. But now let's get back to the middle player, because this is where most of you actually live. The golfer who breaks 90 on a good day, has a reasonable swing, and wants a club that's forgiving but still looks decent behind the ball and gives some feedback. For that player, I keep coming back to the Titleist T 350, the Ping I 230, the TaylorMade Stealth Irons, and the Srixon ZX5. These sit in a category the industry calls players' distance irons. Thinner top line than the big game improvement blocks, but still packed with tungsten weight low in the head to keep the ball flying on mishits. Here's what I found testing these. The center strike ball speed on a player's distance iron and a full game improvement iron is basically identical when the lofts match. I saw maybe 1 mile an hour of difference. What changes is the look, the sound, and the feel at impact. The player's distance iron gives you a firmer, more connected feel and a slightly more compact head. And for a golfer who's a decent striker, that feedback is worth having because it tells you where you hit it. The Ping Fi 230 stood out for a reason that surprised me. It's marketed as a player's iron, meaning less forgiving, but the dispersion in my testing, how tightly the shots grouped left to right, was almost as good as clubs, a full category more forgiving. Ping quietly builds forgiveness into clubs that look like blades, and that's a genuine edge for the middle player who wants the look without giving up the safety net. So for the middle player, the verdict is buy the player's distance category and do not let ego push you into a full blade. But that word blade brings up the last player type, and it's the one the whole industry uses to sell everybody else. Let me tell you what those clubs really do. The better player, the low handicap ball striker, the guy who actually should consider a forged blade or a compact player's iron like the Titleist T100, the Mizuno Pro Series, or the Srixon ZX7. These are beautiful clubs. thin top lines, soft carbon steel forgings, minimal offset, and a small head that rewards a pure strike with a feel nothing else can match. But here's the honest truth. I measured on a perfectly centered strike. That forged blade did not fly one single yard farther than my forgiving iron of the same loft. Not 1 yard. What it did instead was punish everything that wasn't perfect. A strike half an inch toward the toe on the blade lost around 7 yards of carry and drifted noticeably offline. The same miss on the game improvement iron lost maybe 2 yards and stayed on target. So the blade doesn't make good players longer. It gives them control over shot, shape, and trajectory, and it feels incredible when struck flush. That's it. That's the whole benefit. And if your swing isn't repeating that flush strike almost every time, a blade will quietly wreck your scores while making you feel like a real golfer for about 3 holes. This is the club the ads put in a tour pro's hands to make you associate expensive with better. And the cruel part is, for 90% of golfers watching this, a blade is the single worst purchase they could make. It looks like the premium choice. It plays like a trap. So now you know the map. Forgiveness for the higher handicap and senior players distance for the middle, blades only for the true ball striker, and underneath all of it, loft numbers that don't mean what you think. But I promised you something at the start, and now it's time, because I know a lot of you are listening to this thinking, that's fine, but I'm not about to drop $1,300 on a new set just because some guy on the internet told me my lofts are jacked. Good, you shouldn't have to. So this next part is for you specifically, the golfer who wants to fix the clubs already in the bag without spending like it's a new car. Here's the first thing you can do, and it costs nothing but a trip to a decent club fitter or even a careful afternoon with a friend. Check your lie angle. The lie angle is the angle between the shaft and the ground when the club sits at address, and if it's wrong for you, every iron in your bag is pushing shots offline no matter how well you swing. Here's how I proved it to myself. I put a strip of impact tape on the sole of my 7-iron, sprayed a little foot powder on it, and hit balls off a hard lie board. The board leaves a mark showing exactly where the sole strikes the ground. My marks were all toward the toe, which meant my lie was too flat for me, and that was pushing my shots to the right. A club fitter bent my irons 2 degrees more upright. Free-flowing, that's a 5-minute adjustment on a machine, and it costs just a few dollars a club. The result on the monitor was immediate. My shots that used to leak right starting on line. I didn't gain a yard of distance from that. I gained accuracy, which on the scorecard is worth more. A lie angle just 2 degrees off can push a mid-iron shot several yards offline at the target. Multiply that across a round, and you can see how many greens you were missing for a reason that had nothing to do with your swing. The second thing you can do with clubs you already own solves that gapping nightmare I talked about earlier. Remember those 50 yards of dead space between your pitching wedge and sand wedge? You fix that by adding a gap wedge or by having a fitter bend your existing wedges to spread the lofts evenly. I regapped my own short club, so every wedge covered about a 12 to 15 yard window instead of leaving a canyon in the middle. That change alone turned a lot of my awkward half shots into full, confident swings from clean distances. And the third thing, before I give you the big one, is simpler than all of them. Go get your current irons re-gripped if the grips are more than a year or 2 old. Hard, slick, worn grips make you squeeze the handle tighter, and a death grip kills club head speed and releases the club late, sending shots right. New grips cost a few dollars each, and I've watched golfers pick up 2 or 3 miles an hour of club head speed just by not strangling a slick handle. That's real distance from a fix most people never think about. So you don't need a new set to play better tomorrow. You need your existing set set up correctly. The industry would much rather sell you $1,300 of new metal than tell you that a $40 fitting fixes most of what's wrong. But there's one more change, the biggest of them all, and it's the $50 fix I promised you at the very beginning. This is the one almost nobody talks about, and it's the reason a lot of senior golfers think they've simply lost their game for good when they haven't lost anything but a spec that's easy to change. I found the thread that led me to this on a forum full of senior golfers guys in their 60s and 70s comparing notes the way we used to trade tips in the clubhouse. And one after another, they were saying the same thing. The single biggest distance jump they'd gotten in years didn't come from a new club head at all. It came from changing the shaft. Here's the truth. The industry buried under all the shiny new heads. Most iron sets come standard with steel shafts that weigh around 120 to 130 grams. That was fine when you were 40 with a fast swing, but as your speed drops, that heavy steel shaft becomes an anchor you're dragging through the ball, and the club companies keep selling seniors these heavy steel shafts because it's cheaper and simpler than fitting every buyer individually. So I did the test on myself. I took a set of forged irons I already loved and had them reshafted with lightweight graphite designed for iron play, the kind that weighs somewhere around 70 to 95 grams instead of 130. That's dropping 30 to 50 grams out of every club. And graphite doesn't just weigh less, it dampens the sting in your hands and lets you swing freer. The number on the launch monitor is why I'm making this whole video. My club head speed went up between 3 and 4 miles an hour with the same effort. My 7-iron carry climbed almost 8 yards. 8 yards from the same head, the same loft, the same swing. All I changed was the engine underneath. And because graphite launched the ball a touch higher, those shots landed softer and actually held greens instead of scooting over the back. Think about what that means against everything we've covered. The industry wanted you to believe you needed a whole new $1,300 set to find 8 yards, and here it was hiding in a shaft swap that costs roughly $40 to $60 a club at a good fitter. Less if you catch a deal on the shafts. You keep the heads you trust, you keep the clubs your hands already know, you just take the anchor out of them. Now let me be straight with you so you don't waste money. Reshafting the whole set makes the most sense if you already have iron heads you like and they're not worn out. If your grooves are shot and the faces are dished from 10,000 range balls, then yes, look at a new forgiving set and have it built with lightweight graphite from the start, and check the lie angle while you're at it. But if your heads are still good, this is the cheapest real distance in golf. Lighter shaft, more speed, higher launch, softer landing, and you never had to trade in a club you loved. That's the pattern I told you to watch for at the beginning. Every single time, the thing that actually helped my game was cheaper and quieter than the thing the marketing shouted about. Forgiveness over headline distance. Correct lie over new heads. A lighter shaft over a new set. The best iron in golf for most of you is the one you already own, set up the way it should have been sold to you in the first place. So here's where I've landed after all the testing, all the money, and all the range sessions squinting at a screen. You were never the problem. Your swing wasn't the problem. You were sold a number on a club face and a story about new technology, and the real fixes were sitting right in front of you the whole time, costing a fraction of what they wanted you to spend. Taking that knowledge back is how you stop being the golfer the industry counts on and start being the golfer who knows better than the guy in the branded polo. If you're the kind of player who'd rather feel 8 real yards on a launch monitor than read a bigger number stamped on a smaller loft, you already think the way this channel thinks. That's who this is for. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the loft on your current 7-iron? Go grab it, look it up, and tell me in the comments whether it's a real 7-iron or a 5-iron wearing a disguise. And tell me this too. Have you ever reshafted a set, or are you still swinging that heavy steel? Drop it below. I read them and I answer. If this saved you from a purchase you were about to regret, subscribe and stand with the golfers who refuse to be overcharged for yards that were never real. Next time I'm putting the most popular game improvement irons on the monitor, head to head, same loft, same shaft, and showing you which big name set is quietly the least forgiving of the bunch, because the ranking is going to surprise a lot of people who just spent full price on it. And if you want the deeper breakdown, my free guide walks through the exact fitting specs and shaft weights I use so you can walk into any fitter and know more than they expect. Keep your money, keep your good clubs, and go take back those yards this weekend. Now here's the thing I couldn't fit into this video. Stick with me inside the Honest Fairway Club, where I pick up right where I left off, In there, you can ask me your own question and I answer you myself, not some robot. And you won't be alone, senior golfers, just like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen and you can cancel anytime. If this helped you find the right irons, why not subscribe and stay with me? I have plenty more golf guides right here to help you play your best. More is on the way.